this thing on? Looks on.
Hello class, this is Mr. Lewis with your Friday lesson. Today we're going to be going over scatter plots, line graphs, pie graphs, and bar graphs. So to begin the lesson, we're going to talk about data. Right, if you look at our screen here, we already have our data for these graphs. Our data is going to be Keota High School football from 2010 to 2019. If you look at this graph, we have the season year, the games we won, and the games we lost. In 2010, if you go over to games won, we won 4. If you go 2010 to games lost, we lost 6. And that's how you read your data. In 2019, we lost 8. Or we won 8 and we lost 3. I'm sorry, I got that backwards. So in 2019, we won 8 and lost 3. Now, we're going to take this data. By the way, this was all 8-man football, I believe. So if we take this data and put it into a line graph, it will look something like that. So on a line graph, along with many other graphs, we have what's called a y-axis and an x-axis. An x-axis runs this way. Now in this graph, our x-axis is the year. So this is the season year, 2010, 2012, 2014, etc. Now if you wanted to know 2013, you would go between 2012 and 2014, and right there would be 2013. If you look, it shows it right there, 2013 losses. Now if you look at the y-axis runs this way, and our y-axis gives us the number of games. So to recap, x-axis is the year, y-axis is the number of games. Oops. Now, if you look down here, you'll see that it says wins and losses. So the blue line represents wins. The red line represents losses. This right here is called a legend. A legend basically lets you know the information about the graph. So a legend gives an explanation of the symbols or different colors or different patterns that are used in the chart or the graph. If you look in the upper left hand corner, we also have the name of the graph, which will also give a little information about it and what you'll be looking at. So if you look at this graph and the name compared to our pie graph, this is just the 2019 season, whereas the line graph is 2010 to 2019. So that's why you need to check and make sure you're looking at the proper chart or graph. Now our scatter plot is going to look something like our line graph. A scatter plot is just dots in different parts of the data where they're supposed to be. So if we look at our line graph, our scatter plot is basically our line graph without the lines connecting it, right? And it has the same thing, Keota High School football data, 2010 to 2019. Blue is for our wins, red is for our losses. Once again, this is our legend. X-axis is the year, y-axis, and there goes the bell. The y-axis is the number of games. So if we go to our pie graph, I told you our pie graph is different. Our pie graph is only 2019. So in 2019 we played 11 games. And if you look over here, here's our legend. So if you look, we won 8 and we lost 3. So if we add those two together, 8 and 3, we played a total of 11 games. Pie graphs are really useful when measuring a whole of something. So if you were to measure, for example, part of its name, if you were to measure or to compare how many slices of pie have been eaten compared to how many have not, it may look something like this. So that's a pie graph. And we're going to go in depth, a lot more depth throughout the year. I'm just giving a rough overview of these charts and graphs. So a bar graph is a little bit different. If you notice that there's 2 columns for each year on our x-axis. But if you go to our legend, okay, well, all the blue columns are wins. All the red columns are losses, which means in 2010, this would be the wins for that year. If you go up, there's 4. If it's red, that would be the losses for 2010. If you go up to where it meets the axis for Y, it's 6. If you were to do 2014, we had 2 losses. In 2014, we had 11 wins. And that is essentially our graphs. The main thing to keep in mind is to make sure you know what you're looking at as far as the title, understanding the legend, and making sure you're measuring the right quantities or variables down here on your x-axis and your y-axis. And that is all that I have for you. Make sure that you go and take your quiz in your classroom that goes over this video. If you have any questions about the quiz, please send me a message. All the material should be covered in this video. Alright, have a good weekend.